Yeah, but one line, absolutely. All right, so today we're going to talk about how to create a menu class. And we've done a lot of menus over the last 2 quarters. And that's something that we could turn into a class to make our main program more dry. And we could the whole point of making these classes is to reuse the code in future programs, right? Once we've written this class once, we should never have to go back to it again. We just initialized our menu class with some stuff and included it into our main program. And it just makes it very cool, very, very dry. Okay? So, what does a menu look like? Let's start going through a menu. We usually have a menu that looks something like user choice equals 0, and then we say while user choice not equal to 4, we do puts 1 draw box. No, let's do our load character puts 2 load character 2. We gotta have a 1 here. Puts 3 fight. Puts 4 quit. Right? So that's our menu. That's the main menu. And then I do something like if user, I have to get the value, right? I have to get. So I say user choice equals gets dot 2i. Very good.
And you're going to want to do it above, outside of the loop, too, to get your initial value.
Which I did here.
Oh, okay.
All right. So that's a typical while loop, and then I'm going to do something like, I don't know, I could use a case. And when 1, do something like puts loading character 1, etc. Right? So my case would involve all 4 of these values. Yes.
Okay. So if I'm remembering correctly, I think I remember somebody telling us that we weren't supposed to put puts in a class.
Yep. I haven't created the class yet.
Yeah, that right there is just...
But you're right. This is just this is the old way of doing it.
Also, I don't think you'd want to leave that for if you're making a class that you can reuse when you pass that in.
Probably. We'll get to that. The point is, this is how we make a menu, right? This is a standard menu. You might make them a little different, but the idea is the same, right? We have to print out the menu. We have to loop until we get something good. We have to get the value that they typed in and then do something with that value. So that's a typical menu structure. So this stuff is always the same. I mean, typically I need to loop until I get a value. So I could make my menu class do a lot of this for me. Okay. Now this is the one case that I can think of where a puts and a gets makes sense inside of the class. All right. So this violates my rule, but it's for user input. That's what it's for. It's a whole different thing. It ties it specifically. This will only be used in a console type application. I would never use this class in a Rails class because I'm never going to spit out HTML, never going to take text input, that kind of stuff. So I'd have to rewrite it completely if I used it in a Rails project. So let's create a class, menu, and let's think about what kind of things can I put into this. Okay, what do I need my menu to have? All right. Highest number of options. What else?
Input.
All right, what else? You're missing the main thing here. The actual menu, right? The actual menu choices. All right, that's really, if I were to pass in a bunch of menu choices, I could determine the highest number of options from that list, right? So I don't really need to pass this in. The input and output is going to be calculated, so I don't need that. So in my initialize, all I need is a bunch of menu choices, right? All right, so that's good. So I need to pass something in, which is, and I can do this, 1,000 different ways. The best way, so that I keep the encapsulation in case in view here, is that I just pass a bunch of different arguments, and each one of them is the text that's going to be displayed. Like, I don't need to pass in 1, I just need to pass in load character 1 as a string. And then I need to pass in load character 2. Now I could, in my main program, I could put that into an array and pass the array in, right? I could create an array of strings that have the choice of the menu options, and then pass that array into my initialize method. Yes?
Couldn't you just put in a delimited string?
I could.
And then split it
I'd have to
into
parse
arrays
it,
in here?
right? But again, we're trying to make this as easy as possible for the user of my menu class. All right. So if I don't have to force them to put it into an array first or put it into a delimited string, it would be easier. And Ruby has a nice way of doing this. It's called the splat argument. The splat argument. Here's another one, right? Here we go. So they call it a splat argument because it looks like a splat, right? It's a black magic. That's a splat. And what that is a wildcard, right? It's a wildcard of some number of arguments. And I don't know how many there are going to be in the future. It'll take as many as you put into it. It's like a wildcard, right? So, but I need a name to put this into, and I might call this menu args, all right? Menu arguments. But the splat tells Ruby that I'll take as many as you can shove at me, or as few as you shove at me.
That makes sense because the menu might be long or short.
Right? And then my main program, I don't have to worry about it. I can add and subtract them all day long, reuse this, and it makes this very, very variable, very changeable. So when Ruby sees a splat, it turns it into an array of all the values. Yes?
How's that different than just passing an array?
Well, if I pass it an array, the main program has to make it an array to pass it into an array. All right, so let's say my menu.new, and if I did it like this, load character, etc., I would have to make this into an array to pass it in as an array, right? That forces the user of my menu class to know something about what the internals are of my class. So we're trying to keep that separate. So with this splat argument, I just pass in a bunch of strings. And I can keep adding strings all day long to this, and it doesn't matter. The splat converts it into an array for me. So at this point, menu args, if I were to look at this, this is an array variable, an array of strings, all right? Isn't that cool? It does it all for you. But because I didn't enforce having an array here, the internals of this could do whatever they wanted with it. I mean, it's trying to separate again. I don't really care how menu stores my stuff, my class. You can do whatever you want with the stuff I pass into it as long as you do the right stuff. All right? So the splat operator turns everything into an array, and this now is an array of strings. And it could be an array of whatever I pass in. If I just keep putting, if I put a comma 2 here, that those would be passed in as values to the array. So I'd have an array, menus arg sub 0 would be this load character. Menu arg sub 1 would be load character. Menu arg sub 2 would be this 2 integer. Yes. Because an array can store anything. Remember, a Ruby doesn't care what you put in the slot for the array. It doesn't have to be homogeneous like C#, and it doesn't have to only hold arrays.
Just when I read my file in, the language file, it converted all that stuff to this.
It didn't convert it to a string. Remember that a file is always a string. So when you read a number from a file, it's like reading a number from the keyboard. It's always the character 2, the string 2, or whatever. So you have to convert that to an integer if you want it, from a file or from text input. All right? Good. So that's how I want to use my program. I'm going to create a new menu, and I'm going to do it like this. Yes?
If you pass in more than just the menu args, would it automatically make everything a splat, or only if you put...
You have to
if you
put...
did a comma, you have to put the splat in front of it?
You have to receive it on the creation of this method. You have to receive it as a splat here. You have to tell it that it's going to now convert everything into an array here.
It won't convert anything if you put in...
Right. If I do this and I pass in 2 things like this, what's going to happen? It says found 1 extra argument, required 1, because I only received 1 argument here. So if I wanted to do the next one, I'd have to say menu arg 2. Right? Now this works. And that's why I don't want to specify ahead of time, because I want to be able to use this with any type of menu. And you know what, on our programs we have sometimes 3 and 4 and 8 and 10 different values. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Okay. So the splat, yes, this is used a lot in Rails. So the splat makes this very variable, and I can say fight, and I can say quit. All right? So I can make a few assumptions. Given this array, given this menu args, how many values do I have? What's my highest number? Very good. So I can determine that from my menu args. Menu args.length gives me the number of options I have here. All right? Everybody with me so far? All right. So now I can, this would be how I would create my menu object. And now menu is something, what is menu? Menu object. Very good. Okay. So how I might want to use this, let's go from the user side and try to determine how the guy might want to use this class. All right? So I still need, there's lots of ways to do this. But my main program still has to know these different choices. And I still need a while loop. But I can do something like this. Choice equals menu dot get menu choice. All right? So this returns a value, right, that the menu is going to take care of. It's going to print the stuff to the screen. It's going to get the user input.
All it does is sets the value of choice.
Right. So far, that's all it does. And I want to say, while that whole thing, and let's put parentheses around it, while that whole thing is not equal to the quit option, right? While I'm not quitting, which is what I did down here, while my, where's my while loop? While my user choice is not equal to 4, I need to have something a little more generic. While it's not equal to what? All right, my menu.length. But I can't know that my menu class has stored this as an array. So I need to have some way of getting the value of the last argument, right? So I'm going to make a value, and we'll call it menu.quit. Remember, I can store this would be a variable inside my menu object, and I need a, what type? Do I need a getter or a setter to get this value out of this? A getter, right? So I need to create a quit value inside my menu class. All right, so how do I do that? How do I create a value that I'm going to store something? Yeah, I could do an Atra reader, right? So I could say Atra reader, and we use a symbol, and we'll call it quit. So that will create a getter for this instance variable called quit. So now this makes this a value that I can use. I can call my menu object and find out, have I hit the quit option yet? So how do I save that value in this quit variable?
Quit equals menu args not length.
Very good. How come it's not? Oh, because there's too many of them. Dot length. All right. So that tells me if I have 4 things in here, that should be 4. The option is going to be 4. So that's the same thing as saying, while my choice, I'm going to store this because I need to know what the choice is later on in my case statement. I can say the choice is going to be stored. I'm going to get the choice from my menu class. And then while that choice is not equal to 4, do this loop. If it is equal to 4, we're going to quit, and we're going to go to this next line down here. All right, everybody got that so far? So we need another method called getMenuChoice. So inside of my object, my class, I'm going to create this getMenuChoice, and it needs to do all of the work of printing out the menu, asking the user for the value, and returning the final value that they chose. All right? So we need some type of a loop, and remember, this is only doing one because my main while loop is while looping for me. So I need to print out the menu. So first thing I need to do is print the menu. Then I need to ask for user choice, and then I need to return the user choice. So those are the 3 things I have to do. So how do I print my menu? All right, so I can loop through my menus, my menu array, and in my goalposts, I'm going to call it maybe my menu item or just item. And so I'm going to have a loop, looping through each one. And I need to print those out. So I also need to print out the number next to it, right? Because my values have my menus like to have a number. I don't like the P or the X or whatever. So instead of just each, I can use the each with index and add my index at the end of this. So now I have 2 variables that get filled in.
Index plus 1.
Well, I can't do it here. So when I print it out, I have to do the index plus 1. Very good. So if I just say, I'm going to puts out, and this is the one time we're going to do the putsing inside the menu. I mean, I could do it other ways. I could return this as a string and make my main menu print it out. But anyway. So I'm going to print out the value of the index plus 1, right? You got that. Period, space, and then the value of the item. All right, that's it. Then I need to ask for the user choice. So I'm going to get a value. I'm going to I have to prompt them, right? Print, enter your choice. And then I need to do a gets. And we're going to convert it to an integer right away. And then what do I need to do with that value? Return the user choice. All right. So now whenever I call this get menu choice, it's going to and let's just do that once so we skip this part. Let's just call my menu dot quit just so you see what it looks like, and my menu dot get menu choice. I'll just do it once. Yeah, I don't. No. Because why don't I need a puts there? Because my class is doing the putses, right? If I do a puts, no, it won't do it twice, but it will. Well, we'll run it this way first, and I'll show you. Redundancy. All right, so the first time it's printing menu.quit. So 4 is the option for quit. Now that assumes that the guy puts in the right value at the end, so he has to know a little bit that his last item is going to be the quit, whatever that is, right? And number 1, so this is printing out the menu with the enter your choice, and it's waiting for a get, so I can type in 3. And the menu get choice returned what? All right. And where did that 3 go? Didn't go anywhere, right? I didn't save that value. So that's why I have to save that value, and then I can puts that value. All right, so let's run it again. So if I type 3, then user choice has the value 3 in it. Right, so that's how typically we're going to use that menu. But that only gives me one choice, which is why I have to put it into a loop. So let's just do this. So now, if I run this loop, this is going to keep looping until I hit 4. All right. So while we're in here, let's just puts out you chose choice, so I can see that it's all working correctly. So I enter 3. It says you chose 3. I enter 2. Chose 2. 1. 4. Oops, 4 quits. So my little loop here works great. Isn't that great? So now inside of this, I could use my case statement like I did before. Because that is very specific to the program. Right? I don't want my menu to be executing code because I'm going to use this menu on all kinds of different things. So I'm going to let this be, let my main program handle what I do with the choice. My menu class, though, takes care of all of the rest of the stuff. It prints out the menu every time for me, gives me what the user chose, takes care of the quit for me, and so my main program only has this stuff in it. I only have to create a new menu object and use this loop. So let's run it now. So look at that. Undefined local variable user choice, because I named it something in my other one. So I call this just choice. Run it again. Loading character 1, loading character 2, fighting, quitting, done. Isn't that cool? That's awesome. Well, I gave you a menu if you ever wanted to follow it. I gave you guys a menu. Yeah. And a lot of you, I want to stop this process now. A lot of you do this. Or you use /ns in your string. And you're trying to save a line of code, right? But the problem is you're sacrificing usability here for this line of code that you're trying to save. How do I add a new menu item in here? I'd have to put a comma. I'd have to insert this inside of here. How do I know what it really looks like? I don't. It doesn't look like my menu that's going to be printed. Right? It looks different on the screen. So I always do this so that it looks like my menu when I print it out. So then if I want to say, oh, I need something in here, I can just copy this line, paste it, add some new stuff. Add weapons. And now my program will work fine. I've got to add weapons in here. But the formatting of it looks like the menu that it's going to look like on the screen. So quit trying to save some bytes and make it look usable. Stop it. All right, if I add weapons in here, weapons is now 3. Does that mess up my program? Yes, it does. So I'd have to add some more choices here, right? Because these went farther. This is now 4. This is now adding weapon. But see how easy? I didn't have to modify my menu program at all. I can require that in my program, and all of this code gets hidden away, and my main program looks very easy to use. Now again, there are hundreds of ways to do this. I think last year I did 3 or 4 different ways, but and we even got so far as to passing in function names into the menu class and let the menu class actually execute it. But that's pretty complicated, so we're not going to do that. But that just gives you one idea, separating some of the menu options into a class, leaving the rest for your main program to run. Any questions on any of that? Does it? Well, I never have to rewrite this code again, though.
Yeah, but you basically have everything needed out of case statement.
Yeah. I have to rewrite the case statement every time.
Just as much code.
Maybe.
We're making a new object.
Yeah. Well, you have to have this in your program no matter what.
Yeah, but that's more complicated than the menu we've been writing, just that part of it.
Maybe. I don't think so, because now your menus are going to be standard. I have people that forget to print out the menu every time. And so after you do a couple of functions, I have to scroll way back to the top to see what function 6 was. I want to see the menu every time. Yep.
You can also put within it, after you select a specific number, it automatically just reprints it out if you build it all within one specific.
Right.
You can do submenus with it too.
Yeah, I could do submenus with this. Sure.
No, my original question I was going to ask was, for the menu class itself that you just built, would you put that on a
Separate file and require it.
require it in?
Yes. Yes. Because when you start to getting into big programs, you're going to have tens to hundreds of thousands of lines of code, and you want to separate these out into little modules, little pieces of code. Right, just like we did in PHP, just like you do in C# when you build a business class, that's in a whole separate file, and you include it, same kind of thing. It's management of large programs you have to deal with. Now I could make this a lot more difficult, more user-friendly in terms of the menu, but the code would be more difficult. I could actually make this code run the actual methods. I could have methods that I pass in, and I could do that tomorrow just to show you. It's a little more complicated though. Right, on the user, once you have the menu class written though, it makes your program easier. So I could do that. We'll show you that tomorrow. Maybe that'll convince David. I doubt it, but we can try. We can take a shot. It's worth a shot. All right, any other questions on that? No. All right.